All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Center Field. I am Will, and once again, I will be analyzing the NBA. In this case, is what in the world happened to the Miami Heat? I know what I said earlier in my pre-playoff show casting, in which I analyzed the Eastern and Western conferences, and I did pick the Miami Heat to go to the NBA Finals. But I did give some intangibles on what would get them to the NBA Finals, and the way they played against the Milwaukee Bucks. None of that occurred. All right. It was literally a complete disaster outside of game one, where the Miami Heat had their best game and gave Milwaukee their best punch, to say the least. The sad part is this is actually the first time an Eric Spoelstra led team is actually been swept. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the performance of the team itself and tell you what Milwaukee did right in particular, and also whom I think could help the Miami Heat. I'm going to give you my top three guys who I think, if they were to join the Miami Heat, two of which I believe have a possibility of doing so, can really help this ball club in particular. So let me break down basically what went wrong with the Miami Heat. It was Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo were especially the first couple of games, were nowhere to be seen. And game one, they almost won that game. They went all the way to overtime, and Chris Middleton's pretty much last second shot is what sealed the victory for the Milwaukee Bucks. But Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler were nowhere to be seen, at least for whom they are and what they're getting paid. They were not the star players that they could have been. Whether that was they were just spent from the season the way it was, and the bubble last year being a shortened season, I don't know. But the bottom line is that Jimmy really did struggle. All right, he shot very poorly. I believe it was in the 40 percentile of shooting for Jimmy Butler. And that's unacceptable for a guy of his caliber, being a superstar in particular. The bench was atrocious. All right, the bench was absolutely atrocious. Goran Dragic did not have a good series at all. He was even injected it into the starting lineup as a means of giving the starting team a bit of a push, and he was not very good. I did say that the Miami Heat bench, which was very instrumental last year in getting the Heat to the NBA Finals, was nowhere to be found this time around. Okay, Tyler Hero himself, pretty much averaged about 9 points per game. There was a lack of rebounding as well. Tyler Hero had his best game in game four, but he scored about 15 points, but it was nothing. Duncan Robinson had his best game in game one at 24 points, but he was gone after that. He averaged about 10 points. And Duncan Robinson, we're going to get back to him later on because of the fact that he is going to be someone to talk about. All right, so I want to talk about a few things. Last year, what made the Miami Heat better? Number one, Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder and his timely shots, Jay Crowder and his defense on Giannis, and his defense overall were good for the team. Letting go of Jay Crowder to bring in guys like Avery Bradley and Will Harkless was a bad move on the part of Pat Riley. We should have re-signed Jay Crowder. We should have probably re-signed Derrick Jones Jr. And that was a major issue, I believe, for the Miami Heat moving forward. The Victor Oladipo trade was good on paper because Victor Oladipo is a guy that gives you very good defense and was quietly averaging 21 points in Houston prior to his injury, which has sidelined him for the rest of the year. But the Miami Heat really did miss Kelly Olynyk. Kelly Olynyk was not the toughest guy on the court. He was not the best defensive rebounder, but he was a stretch five, and he would have been excellent in getting Brook Lopez outside of the paint and having to guard Kelly Olynyk beyond the three-point arc. And I think that would have made a bit more of a difference because Brook Lopez murdered the Miami Heat inside defensively and offensively, both in rebounding and even in scoring. So I think having that body of Kelly Olynyk just to be in front of Brook Lopez and even pushing him defensively into beyond the arc would have made a major difference for the Miami Heat, and that just wasn't the case this time around. So I think the Heat really did miss Kelly Olynyk, especially since Victor Oladipo did not turn out to be the player that he was supposed to be at the beginning of this year. Now, going into Duncan Robinson will become a free agent at the end of the season, and what the Miami Heat do with him has yet to be seen, and we're going to address that later on as well. But we got to give the Bucks credit. The Bucks, being told that this was the series that was likely to be an upset, that the Miami Heat matched up well with them, that without Jimmy Butler, the Heat were very controlling of the Milwaukee Bucks, that they had found the secret to Giannis. All that meant nothing to this team. They went out there for a mission, and they wanted to flat out murder the Miami Heat and dominate them on both sides of the ball, and that they did. Giannis had an MVP caliber series against the Miami Heat. Chris Middleton was phenomenal. He was literally unstoppable, whether it was driving in or whether it was shooting beyond the arc. Brook Lopez was a monster down low. they really did hand it to Miami Heat. And then, of course, you have other role players like Bryn Forbes, who killed the Miami Heat coming off the bench. PJ Tucker, another guy, the tough guy that would get you tough rebounds, occasionally shoot beyond the arc, really did do a lot of damage to Miami Heat. What really was astronomical was the way they lost. Literally, the Miami Heat were outscored by 80 points in the last 3 games. Unacceptable for a Pat Riley team, unacceptable for an Eric Spoelstra-led team. So that was a major key in the reasons why the Miami Heat lost. And another thing was rebounded. The Miami Heat were out-rebounded by double digits in every single loss to the Milwaukee Bucks. So the Miami Heat have to do something, either figure out a way in the scoring department or get somebody that could do a lot of the tough rebounding in the offseason. So we'll see what happens with the Miami Heat in particular. All right. So some of the things that that I thought, once again, going back to Tyler Hero disappeared. Tyler Hero did not have the series that he had in the bubble. As mentioned earlier, Tyler Hero averaged about 9 points per game for this ball club. A major disappointment for a guy that early on this year had such upside that he could not be traded. They could have gotten Kyle Lowry for him. They decided to not get Kyle Lowry. They could have gotten possibly James Harden for him. They decided to take the risk and keep Tyler Hero because of his upside, and whether James Harden fit the Miami Heat defensive mold, that's a whole other ball game, a whole other story. But Brooklyn's doing pretty well with James Harden on the team. The Miami Heat are out of the playoffs, so that's something that we have to ask ourselves as a ball club and as a team in general. So those are things in particular. So in the offseason, I think that everybody's up for grabs. The only untouchable players at the moment are Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. I think those are the only two guys that are not up for grabs in terms of trades. I do believe everybody else is. Kendrick Nunn had, he played well for us, but I don't think that Kendrick Nunn is going to sign with the Heat. I think that Kendrick Nunn has a chance to make 15 million, 20 million a year going elsewhere. And I do believe that Kendrick Nunn will sign somewhere else. So that's something that's going to happen there. Duncan Robinson is a great shooter. He didn't have a good series, but he had a fairly good season, especially after the trade deadline, once the whole trading rumors were eliminated from the vocabulary involving him. So what the Heat do with Duncan Robinson has yet to be seen, and we'll find out soon as the weeks come along, and especially after the finals in general, to say the least. All right, so what I'm going to give you now are my 3 guys that I think can make an immediate impact for the Miami Heat, and I think could take the Heat to the next level. 2 guys I think are attainable. 1 guy is definitely not. 1 is just happens to be a fan favorite of mine. So I'm going to go with the one that's least likely to join the Miami Heat, and that is one of my personal favorites, and that's Damian Lillard. I'm a huge fan of D. Lillard out of the Portland Trail Blazers. Phenomenal point guard, has great presence on the floor, is a pretty good defender, and can shoot from anywhere on the floor. So he gives you that scoring punch that the Miami Heat need, but he's also a veteran type of guy that Pat Riley likes, being 30 years old. So I do believe that if he was to come to Miami Heat, he can make an immediate impact, both in scoring, on defense, and distribution. Would take the pressure off of Jimmy Butler, and I think that's something that Jimmy doesn't want anyway. Jimmy Butler does not want to be a 25-point guy at night, for the Miami Heat, for his team. Damian Lillard could do that and also get his in terms of the assist category. Why I don't think he can come to the Heat? I think he's going to stay in Portland. I think he likes that city. He's loved there. He's literally not going to be a free agent until 2025, if I'm not mistaken. So D. Lillard is solidified there in Portland, but he's a monster. He has no fear. He gives you great work in the regular season, and is a dominant player in the playoffs as well, right? Even if he's not scoring, he's setting up his teammates. And I think that's something that the Miami Heat lack, and it's something the Miami Heat need in particular, right? So as far as coming to the Heat go, I don't think there's a possibility, but he just happens to be one of my favorite players, if not my favorite point guard in the NBA at the moment. Second player has actually expressed interest in joining the Miami Heat, so I have no idea why he signed an extension with his ball club, and that is Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal, being a former Florida Gator, is a downright purely offensive scorer, and he is just nasty in the handles in terms of one of the most difficult players to guard in the NBA. Very shifty. His lateral movements are excellent. He makes defenders, pretty much miss in trying to guard him. He could score from up close. He could literally drive into the paint and score. He could shoot from the outside as well. He fits the mold in what the Miami Heat need as a complementary player to Jimmy Butler. So I think Bradley Beal being in the Miami Heat is a really good fit alongside with Bam Adebayo as well. And of course, adding on our star player, which is Jimmy Butler. He's under contract right now with Washington, but he could actually has a player option for next year. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know why he signed that contract. He had hinted in the past in tweets and so on that he is interested in coming to South Beach, but apparently he signed a contract, so he still has another year before he can actually use his player option. But Bradley Beal was second in the league in scoring this year. Steph Curry narrowly beat him out, and that's something that the Miami Heat need, that they could stretch the floor with him and he could go inside and score on anybody. He's another guy that's not afraid to take over a game, which again alleviates pressure off of Jimmy Butler. But whether Bradley Beal comes to this team on a trade or as a free agent, not exercising his player option next year, we'll see what happens. But I don't think Pat Riley wants to wait till next year. I think he wants impact players now. And lastly, the last player whom I think is most likely, and I'll explain why, but we never know what he's thinking, is Mr. Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is a perfect fit for the Miami Heat because he is a two-way player. He'll get you 25 a night, but he'll shut down the team's best offensive player on the other side of the ball. So Kawhi Leonard does fit this mold. The Heat have experience in dealing with Kawhi Leonard, especially since he was very instrumental in the San Antonio Spurs defeating the Miami Heat to capture a championship in LeBron's last year with the Miami Heat. So I do think Kawhi Leonard could be a possibility, especially if the Clippers lose out to the Dallas Mavericks in their playoff run in particular, and it just doesn't work out with Paul George. Stephen A. Smith has reported that he has a very good friendship with Jimmy Butler, so that may attract him to Miami. We never know what he's thinking. He is under contract currently with the Clippers, but he does have a player option that he doesn't have to take his money with the LA Clippers if he wants to go to a team that he fits is ready to be a contender. Again, all that because he is a $37 million guy a year, nearly $40 million guy a year. He could pay him more, but all that depends on what happens with Duncan Robinson and everybody else whom they want to bring back, or pieces they may want to add around Kawhi, Jimmy, and Bam. All right, so Kawhi Leonard, I do think is the best possibility based upon the fact that he can't opt out of his contract with the Clippers this year. It's difficult because he is a California guy, but if he wants to win another ring with a different team and an organization that is ready, it's just a guy away, and it's proven because they've gone to the finals. I think the Miami Heat are his best bet. Again, he fits the Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra mode, that he's a defensive first guy mentally, but he's also gives you that scoring touch that the Miami Heat need, and he alleviates pressure off of Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler as well, who really don't want to be the leading scorers on this team. They'd rather be efficient in other ways. Jimmy as a distributor, and Bam Adebayo just basically, the short mid-range jumper and, putbacks and so on when one of his teammates misses off the offensive rebound. Okay, so that's my take. All right, that's what I think in terms of guys coming. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard. I do think Kawhi Leonard will be the best possibility, okay, to say the least. But nonetheless, I don't know what's going to happen. That's what I think happened with the Miami Heat. They were dominated. Okay, I have no excuses. I know what I said in earlier broadcasts. I did believe the Heat could make it to the finals. I was wrong. They didn't play up to standard. Okay. Well, anyways, if you like what you heard, please like, share, and ring that bell for that notification. Okay, so you can get notifications when we post another video here at the Center Field. All right, everybody, for the Center Field again, I'm Will. Until next time, see you soon.